And we are live. Another big game, mate. Big, massive fixture. Hopefully now one that's going to get our season rolling after that good performance against Southampton. So, this is the big match preview. We're previewing a Watford game. A tricky away fixture, right? But again, I think this is another must-win.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's so mad to say that so early in the season that it's a must-win game, but when you've only picked up 1 point out of 2 games, when you're one of the favourites to go up, you need a win as soon as possible. And we had a great performance the other night against Southampton, but the team's going to be totally different on Saturday. So it is a sort of must-win game. But look, if we don't win, this obviously it's not the end of the world. We know that, but it'll be good to build on that momentum from the other night and go into this game. But Scott, can I just say that I've hosted one preview show this season and we won. So I'm retiring on that one. I've done the Southampton preview. I'm retiring, Scott. Never doing them again. I'm going out.
Mate, like these games, the previews can be coming thick and fast. So we're going to have a bit like the West Ham squad, a lot of chopping and changing as the season goes on. This is the key factor. You look at the changes that we made the other night, and it worked and worked really well. Watford on the other hand made a few changes and got their asses handed to them. Let's be honest, losing 5-1 to Peterborough. So, mixed fortunes of the sort of reserve side for each team. But do you think that realistically Watford are looking at this game against us as the bigger picture? And obviously, because they want to get out of this league as much as we do.
Yeah, 100%, mate. I mean, look, they've started the season quite well. I mean, they beat Southampton on the opening day and they got a good point at Wrexham last week. I think they're like the 7th or 8th in the league at the moment. So they've obviously got ambitions to try to get into the playoffs this season. Look, they completely changed their team the other night. Did they have one eye on this game? Yeah, most probably. Because, we are the team. We've said it, and I think it's shown in the first 2 games. We are the team that everyone wants to beat this season because, and it's not being arrogant. It's a fact. We're the big team in this league. Everyone will love to come to that London stadium and get 3 points. And beat us on their home patch as well. We are the team that everyone wants to beat. So every time we slip up, that's why the views go up on like fan cams and when we do content, because people want to see us talking about West Ham getting defeated. But we've obviously going into this game now. As I said, we've got to be full a little bit more, have a lot more confidence going, especially players like Tatty and Bowen, who we know are going to start, and they got their Bowen got his first goal the other night. Tatty, he's already scored in the league this season, in the cup, sorry. So it'll be good. But the thing is with the team, I think he's going to keep it very similar to what we had against Charlton last week. The only change that I might see is that I might see Alford come in for Kante. That's the only one I can really see. But there are players pushing, Ajala, he's pushing, he'll be fucking desperate to get in that starting lineup, even to get off the bench on Saturday. So it's going to be a tough game, but it's a game that we've got to go there and get it'll be nice to get like a sort of convincing win.
Yeah, no, you are right, mate. I think you'll probably see a tweak in the system again. I don't think you look at the Charlton game. We did dominate possession. It was just we were very, very slow and laboured with the possession that we had. We created quite a few chances, but not enough clear-cut ones. And when we did, we didn't take them. Where against Southampton, we were much more clinical in front of goal with less of the ball. And it just goes to show having the ball all the time doesn't always favour you. But I think that the key aspects for me that we look at that Southampton fixture and take from it is the fact that the change in the shape where we played the 4-2-3-1 seemed to suit us a lot better. Having the hungry players, but also when we were discussing on post-match pint, we said the switching up. Not the laboured side to side, backwards. We saw when we had to go route one, we went route one. We were a bit more direct. We played a bit more on the front foot. And for me, that's the key thing that we've been getting wrong. We've been getting wrong this negative style and slow build up, passing it around the back, going side to side. It's a predictable build-up play that we've seen, probably since Moyes was managers. We've seen this predictable build-up. You know that the ball's going to go wide to the left and then it's going to work its way across to the right. I thought against Southampton, we didn't see that much. It was a lot more direct, a lot more clinical. You did see it from time to time, but the passes weren't like players taking 2 or 3 touches, then laying the ball off. They were trying to get into a bit more of a rhythm. And I think if we can take that with the more stronger players that we've got in the squad and have that more rhythm and more flow in football, I think it'll work in our favour. Because as I said the other night, I don't think we can afford to be on the back foot all the time. We need to be the aggressor. We need to be the team that go and assert a dominance on our oppositions.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, man. And that's one of the frustrating things for me from last week was watching us against Charlton was how slow we was to break. I stood with you last week and we could see it down the left. Like Solomon's making the runs, but Ollie Scholes, he, as I said, I rate him as his defensive side of the game, but going forward, he never takes anyone on. He never beats a man. So, we need to, as you said, we need to go into this game against Watford, and from the first minute to the last, we need to, a bit like what we done the other night. The other night watching it against Southampton, it was so refreshing to see players get on the ball and want to take players on, players making the run, players not afraid to play the little 1-2s. You see, what's his name?
Mukasa?
No, Ajala, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I went out of my head then. Ajala, the way he was dropping in, and it looked like he'd been playing for the last 2 or 3 seasons in the first team, and you think to yourself, he's got 2 goals the other night. Is it worth maybe chucking him in? Giving him a start because he's going to be well up for it. But then who do you drop? Because you got Solomon on the left, you got Bowen on the right. You'll have Tatty. I'd probably say I know Pirro played the number 10 role last week, but I think I think he looked a lot better when he was up top.
Yep. Yeah, I agree, mate. He led that line well the other night, and he was unlucky with the chances that he had. He's got his goal already in the league this season, so he's off the mark and up and running, especially getting it on his debut. And he does seem to lead the line a bit better. For me, when you look at Tatty seems to be getting involved too much with the defenders. Having the little battles that you get, playing as a striker up against the centre half. So I think he needs to get less involved in that and focus more on the footballing side of things, because he's not, he's got to get used to it now that he's not going to get the decisions that you get in the Premier League down in the Championship. You've got to be a lot more aware about the dirty tricks that centre halves can play. It's a bit more old-fashioned style in the Championship to what it is in the Premier League, because obviously with VAR you can't get away with it in the Premier League.
I totally agree, mate. And as I said, in the Premier League you play against ball-playing defenders. In the Championship you play against lumps, people that are just going to get in your way. They're going to wind you up. They're going to header everything. So Tatty can't afford to really get involved in it, because the more he gets involved, he's going to find himself getting sent off. Because he's got that. Don't get me wrong, I like that he's got that little bit of flair, that little bit of, how can we say it nicely, that little bit of bastard in him, a bit like what Arnautovic was like. He's the wind-up merchant, but he can't keep throwing himself to the floor. You see last week, it was a disgrace when he dived for that penalty. Nowhere near him. We don't want to see that, because it is cheating. The thing is with Tatty, I think the other night would have done him good. I think it proved a lot when he scored that goal and he runs straight over to the fans, celebrating with the fans, all his teammates around him. So if he can find a little bit of form, because I said last week, mate, our forward line on paper looks unbelievable. When you think of what we've got, Bowen, Solomon, Tatty, Pirro up top, you got Mukasa now that can come on and play behind them. You got Ajala pushing for a start. There's so much talent in that team, but in the first 2 games, we just didn't look like a team, and that's the difference.
Yeah, 100%, mate, 100%. You go all the way back to the Burnley game. You look at the Burnley's performance and how we allowed them back into the game. They look more like a team than what we did. Again, we looked in that second half against Burnley, we looked the side when Nuno took over last season. That just completely shell-shocked, didn't know what to do, didn't know how to go about their business. And Burnley had a plan and got themselves a result out of it. And then, with Charlton, you see Charlton, they were organised, they were disciplined, they had their setup, they knew what they were doing. They compacted the middle. They allowed us the ball wide because they knew we weren't going to do much about it. You're swinging the balls into Tati, who's not the tallest of strikers, up against 6 foot plus bulky centre halves. You're playing into their hands, and we did that far too much against Charlton. And this is what, again, taking me back to Southampton, being a bit more direct, being a bit more aggressive, and not that slow, patient build up, knocking it into the box. And when you've got a player like Tati up against lumps, you can't do that. So you've got to mix it up a bit, and that's what we need to see going into this one. We've got £2 super chat from BO86WHU. Would you gents drop Skulls, KWP or Veltman? That's something that we were going to talk about as well. So thank you very much for the £2 there, mate. What are you thinking on that one, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, Ollie Skulls last week, and I think obviously in the first game as well. He's, as I said, look, I like him. I think he's got a good future at the club, but for me, look, at the moment it's false because we haven't got any competition for him, but he shouldn't be a first choice. We need someone with a little bit more experience, a bit more attacking. So when he just said there, Veltman could easily play on the right and Carl Walker-Peters could play on the left. It's something we've seen him do before. So that might, to be fair, that wouldn't surprise me if we see that in the starting lineup, because I was very impressed with Veltman the other night, especially getting up and down. He played really well. He obviously got the assist for Tati's goal. He's got a lot of experience. Someone said it the other night, and it could turn out to be our Craig Dawson signing. Bit similar to what Craig Dawson was. You thought he was just going to come in just to make up the numbers in the squad, but he could push to be a starter. And look, we know he can't play week in, week out because of his age, but when you've got 2 games a week, you need these players to be ready to play, at least one of them games. Yeah,
listen, I'm with you. I think Skulls, he's been a bit disappointing. I think he'd be disappointed in himself. I thought Burnley was having a good game and then sort of ruined it himself with the rash challenge against Charlton. He weren't brilliant. Maybe taking him out the firing line for a game as well might help him a little bit. I'm glad that Nuno stuck with him after the mistake that he made against Burnley, because I think sort of hanging him out to dry would have absolutely knocked his confidence. But
yeah, because when you look back at that Burnley game, Scott, you forget that he cleared one off the line.
Exactly,
and he was playing well up until that penalty.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. And he probably, you take that decision out, he probably deserves a start again. But he just wasn't. He wasn't great, and I don't know whether that's the lack of understanding with Solomon, the lack of work rate maybe defensively that Solomon gives that might leave him a little bit exposed. We'll have to wait and see as the season progresses. But Veltman, I thought when he's come on, he's looked good. I thought he looked a different level to some of our other defenders yesterday on Tuesday night. So he looks like you said, that experience that he brings and the way he gets forward. I think has he got 2 assists this season already now? He got one the other night, didn't he? Definitely.
Yeah, I know he's definitely got one.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, look, not only that, mate, he's might be pushing for a start to play centre back, because we've looked shaky at the back. Mavropanos and Kilman, we know, can't play together. We see that last season. So maybe chucking Veltman in alongside Mavropanos might be a new partnership, So there's a lot for Nuno to think about, especially after the other night, because as we spoke about on post-match pint last night, these players that come in, Golan Beckis didn't let us down. He'll be sitting there thinking, do you know what? I could be in contention to play here. So it's good, and this is what we want. We want Nuno to have good headaches, and when I say good headaches, I mean like he's got too much to choose from. And that during the game he makes the right decisions, and like the other night, the substitutions were spot on. We give him credit for that. We're so quick to criticise him when he gets it wrong, so let's give him praise when he gets it right. So But what you said at the beginning of the show, mate, you know, we do need the 3 points on Saturday because we've got to kickstart our season. We've got a tough run of fixtures coming up in a short space of time. We've got obviously Watford on Saturday, the Wolves at home next week, and we've got Derby at home, and then Bolton away, and then Millwall at home. And I think the Carabao Cup, does the Carabao Cup affect the Bolton game? I'm not sure how it works, but
I wouldn't think so.
But that's week commencing the 7th of September. So there's like 6. You're talking 6 potential games there before the international break. That's a lot of games. Like from the start of the season, we've had 2 cup games, 2 league games, another like 6 games. You know what I mean? That's a lot of games before the first international break. So we need to make sure, because it looks like Ward-Prowse is leaving the club now. I've just watching on Sky Sports News that he might be going back to Southampton. We spoke earlier on a group chat. Reece Nelson's been released by Arsenal. Looks like he could be joining West Ham. He's a winger. He can play both sides. Would be good backup to Solomon and Bowen. But we've still got to go out and we've got to get another centre half, another left back, and I'd say another centre mid.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the key. That's the key thing, mate. Is that allowing all these players to go. You know, the youngsters give, like you said, Nuno a good headache. You know, with their performances and how they went about their business the other night. But the depth is still not there. You know, we don't want to be getting midway through the season and relying week on, week out these youngsters, because youngsters will make mistakes. If we see with Ollie Scholes, they make mistakes. You know, they're learning curves for them, but they're harsh learning curves, and we're not in a position where we're sitting comfortably in the league where we can afford these mistakes. Do you know what I mean? We need everyone to be on their A game 24/7 when we're playing.
And like when you've got 46 league games, cup games, the further you go in the cup, it's obviously more games. You can't expect players like Bowen to play every single game. You can't expect Tatty, Solomon, Pirro. They can't play every game. So you've got to have good enough replacements to come on, because we might need to rest Bowen for a game or two, because and the same with the other players that I mentioned. And when you look at the defence, Mavropanos ain't going to be able to play every game. You know, Walker Peters ain't going to be able to play every game. So you got to it's getting the balance right and getting the right players in. That you think, right, Bowen can't play this week, but we've got a good enough player to come in to take his place.
Yeah,
and maybe even play so well that Bowen might have to fight his way to get back in the team.
Well, and this is what we need. We need competition as much as we need cover for when certain players pick up injury, suspension. That's competition. Competition is the key. You know, just sitting there relying on Solomon and Bowen all season. Yes, you know, with players like Bowen, they're going to give their all, and they're going to keep doing it. You know,
comment of the night, that Scott, 100% agree. 100%.
But yeah, you know, just having them too, they can't rest on their laurels if there's competition behind them. Do you know what I mean? Bowen, we've flogged Bowen for the past 3 seasons. You know, so many times we've been sitting there, even when we were comfortable in games, and you're sitting there thinking, take him off, give him a rest, and we're still playing him. And I think a lot of his form dipping towards the end of last season was the fact that there was so much weight on his shoulders, and he was just playing week after week. Look, I know him as a professional football player will want to play football. You know, this is the thing. He's going to want to take it up. He's the captain. He's going to want to do that. But sometimes you just need to rest that player. Give him a break. Give me a breather.
Look at the difference in Bowen the other night when he come on as a sub. Look at the difference. You know, he come on and he looked fresh. I know it was only he come on about the 55th minute, didn't he, or 60th minute?
Yeah.
And he looked fresh, and you know he was creating things, and he took his goal well. Sometimes, like giving these little sort of players a rest, is a good thing, because as we said, Bowen's not going to be able to play. He's played a lot of football since he's joined this football club. He's never really injured, is he? Nope. He usually plays 90 minutes, so he's played a lot of football over the last few years. And I said to Nicky when me and him done the preview for the Southampton game that I think once Bowen gets his first goal, he gets a little bit more confidence. We'll start seeing the best of Bowen, because I know people saying, oh, they'll take the 50 million for him. I'd rather keep Bowen, because Bowen helping us get promoted is worth more than 50 million.
Exactly.
You know, we need to go up this season, because if we don't go up, it'll be a long time before we get promoted. Yeah. So this is a big opportunity for us to go up this season.
Yeah, I'm with you, mate. I think taking 50 million for a player of Bowen's quality is ridiculous. It's great money for a player that 29 turning 30, and obviously he is Premier League quality. But like you said, for us, keeping him at the club is a big thing, and it is worth more than 50 million quid. Because like you said, if we don't go up this season, mate, we're going to struggle. We really will struggle. And I know we're only in, and a lot of people were saying, "Oh, people overreacting because losing one game, you've still got so many more to go." We have, but we said this at the start of the season. The first 6 games are difficult, and we need to be at least 2-3 wins out of these first 6 games, because we don't want to be chasing a pack, because that is when it becomes very, very hard, especially when everyone treats us like a cup final. And that's not us being big-headed. We've got the biggest stadium in this division. We are the team that was an established Premier League side who's dropped back down, and everyone's going to want to get one over. So we can't afford to be cut adrift too far early in the season. And this is why these are such big games.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, mate. 100%. I totally agree. And I think that, there are some good teams in this championship. You see, I know, and we said it last night, I know Millwall are our rivals, but they're a good team. They're a good team, and they'll be up there challenging. I said last night, their fans will be disappointed that they didn't go up last night. They should have got automatic promotion, but they let themselves down towards the end of the season. So they're going to be up there. There's a lot of good teams in this championship, but as I said, we've got to go out and just show that we are the best in this league. Let's go on a little run. If we go on a good run, we'll push ourselves, and if we can get into that international break around the top 2, or just outside, that'd be a great start to the season.
Yeah, exactly, mate. And this is the thing. If we can do that, it leaves us in good stead. £5 super chat from Rich. Massive thanks to everyone yesterday. I was really low, but the West Ham family helped me once again. Simply best. Rich, glad to see you're doing better, mate. Don't know what it was why you were so low, mate, but keep the faith, and we're always here. Feel free to reach out to any of us. I'm not the best at replying to DMs, I will admit, but if you ever need it, mate, just reach out. We're always available. But it's good to see you doing good, mate. So going into this, Raya, I'm expecting a few changes personnel-wise. Like you said, I think Halford will probably come in after the other night's performance, and possibly Veltman coming in at right back and JWP going left. Do you see any other changes, though?
No, I think Veltman will come in, and I think that Halford will come in for Kante. Up top, no, I think he'll keep it the same. He'll probably will start Tatty up top with Hero behind him, Solomon on the left, Bowen on the right. But do you know what? I don't know. Like Mukasa, for me, when I watched him against Charlton, he didn't have long, but he impressed. And when I watched him the other night, and I know that he wasn't, when we signed him, there was a lot of people that wasn't happy with it. They thought he was just going to be a Man City youngster that was going to come here and just stroll around the place. I think he's here to play football. And what I love about him is he loves the club. He loves West Ham. He's family at West Ham. He's from the area. He played for us since he was a little kid. Okay, he joined Man City. But let's be honest, what youngster is going to turn down Man City given a chance? So for him, he will want nothing more than to help get us promoted this season. So, in midfield, it will probably be Alford and Engels, most probably.
Yeah.
I can see that. I can see 2 changes. I think Hermanson obviously goes back in goal.
I think that's a given. I don't think, as much as he didn't play too bad, I didn't think he did enough the other night. So Hermanson will come back in. I think Areola sort of picking up that knock, missed his opportunity to try and get that number 1 jersey back. So I'm with you. I think Hermanson will come in. I'd like to see Veltman given a start, to be honest. I think he'll strengthen that back line, especially with Mav coming back in and Kilman. I'm with you with Orford over Kante.
I just think with Kante, like, I do like him. I think he's a really good player. He has started the season well. He's got a couple of assists, one in the cup, one in the league. I found with him last week that I think he's got a heavy touch, innit? And sometimes he has to. That heavy touch causes either he gives a free kick away or he loses the ball. I think with Alford, he just gives you that little bit of balance in midfield and a bit more calmness. But listen, if Kante starts on Saturday, I'm not against it because I think he has got a bright future at this football club. And look, and these youngsters are only starting to play first team football. We've got to remember that. They're not used to playing week in, week out. And it's a big occasion because you go from playing week in, week out in front of 300 people in a under 23s game to them going to play in front of 60,000 fans. It can get to you. You know, it is nerves. And that's why sometimes youngsters can go missing. And that was what I was very impressed with the other night. That none of them went missing.
Yeah,
they put themselves in the shop window for Nuno to choose them.
Yeah, that's the key. That's the key factor. And the thing is, as well, we've seen with Kante, I think it was against Pompey, that he sort of started a bit wider on the left in a free. You know, so it gives us the opportunity to switch up systems as well. You know, if we want to play a 4-3-3 system, we can do. You know, Kante's 2 assists come from him getting down the wing and looking inside. You know, I like him because he gets his head up as well. You know, Alford's another one. They're not scared to get on the ball. For youngsters, they're not scared, and that is the key factor going in. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what we do.
Mate, the thing is, mate, we've seen senior professionals at this football club over the last 5 years go missing when times are tough. Go missing during games. Don't go out to the wing and just stand by the touchline. I don't want to get involved. When you see a youngster wanting the ball, it's refreshing.
Yeah,
and you know that's the sort of player you want in your team. Not people that don't go hiding. You want players that are going to fight, want the ball, and want to win matches for this football club.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Definitely. That is it. So the big question is, mate, what do you reckon the result will be on Saturday?
Do you know what? I do fancy us. I think it'll be tough, but I'm going to go 3-1 West Ham. I'm going to go for a 3-1 win.
Confident.
Yeah, no, I am sort of confident. Like, even though the other night gave me confidence, but I know it's not going to be the same team. But I just think that there'll be a better feeling around that football club over the past couple of days, and I think that we can go to Watford and get the result. But look, it will be a tough game. As I said, they've started the season good, 4 points out of 6. You know, beat Southampton on the opening day, great point at Wrexham. So they're not going to be no mugs. But I think if we get our players ticking early on, I fancy us to go out 3-1.
Yeah, mate. I'm not as confident as you as in the result, but I think we'll play on the front foot. I really do. I think Nuno, I think he's been bitten in the backside with this system. I don't think he'll revert to type for this game. I think there's too much riding on it now, and he needs results. You know, and when you look at his form for us, you know, as much as it did turn around, we still ended up going down. So I think 2-1. I think it's going to be a little bit nervy towards the end, but I think we're going to win this one 2-1 and get the first league win. And then I do think this will be the catalyst to push us on. I hope I'm right. You know, listen, as much as I've been very negative towards Nuno and all that, I praised him the other night because he got it right and he didn't revert to type. And I'm hoping that he does this against Watford, you know, and doesn't revert to type. You know, Charlie said there in the comments, Watford are good on the counter attack, and I just think that we need to be high on the press, and we need to work the ball really, really well. So yeah, I think we'll win it 2-1.
Yeah, 100%. And what you said about Nuno was spot on. Like, this is a big game for him because if he can get the win and then go on a little run, it takes the pressure off of him, especially from like a majority of the fan base. You know, he does need to win around a lot of the fans, you know, including myself and like most of us. But a defeat for him puts the pressure on him really better because we get a defeat. We're going to Wolves at home on Tuesday night. If we lose that as well, mate, they could be looking for someone new this early in the season. So Nuno needs to win. So
yeah.
But listen, we all need the win. We all need the win. Not just Nuno, us fans and the players.
Exactly.
Everyone connected with the football club. The tea lady, if she's still there, if they didn't make her redundant as well. Everyone needs it.
This is a good question. How many games would you give Nuno? You know, we sent that one in there. You know, this is the problem. This is what we were saying about, you know, you not being cut adrift, right? And the one thing that is annoying is that you back a manager in a transfer window, and then the transfer window shuts, and then you get rid of the manager. You know, we saw this with Potter. We sort of backed Potter in the transfer window. As soon as the window shut, within middle of September, I think it was, he was gone, and then it leaves. But I think that for me personally, when you look at what happened last season and bring that in to the way we've started this season, I don't think you can afford to give Nuno 10 games if things are not going right. You know, if we get to 5 games, 6 games in, and we've still not picked up a win, you know, you've got to be looking to pull the trigger, because
thing is, though, Scott, you say that, like the first international break, we'd have played nearly 10, 12 games. So, and the international break's only, 3 or 4 weeks away.
Yeah.
So, I think they'll give him to the first international break, and then they'll look and see how we're getting on. And then, you know, if we haven't picked up any wins, then they could pull the trigger and get rid of him. But I'm hoping that he can turn it around, because I think that, you know, if you look at all the managers around the Championship, he's one of the top managers in there.
Yeah.
And if we can get a tune out of these players, then, yeah, I'm all for it. But Charlton last week, I looked at it, because I've always tried to get behind Nuno. I get behind any manager that's at his football club, because I want them to do well. I want them to win games. But sometimes it just don't work. Lopetegui didn't work. Potter definitely didn't work. You know, and Nuno's come in, and as someone said there was spells last season where you think, yeah, he's doing well, and then something won't go right for him. Like, we'll make a mistake during the game. Like, I can't blame Nuno for Mavropanos thinking he's Maldini last week and trying to dribble it out. I can't blame Nuno for Mavropanos and Kilman not winning headers when they should. You can't blame Nuno for Scholes giving away penalties. So sometimes players have to take responsibility as well. But the manager is always the easy one to, and he hasn't always got it right. But let's hope that he gets it right on Saturday, and we get them 3 points, and we can all have a nice Saturday night for a change.
I like the sound of that, mate. I like the sound of that.
I was just about to say watch Match of the Day, but we're not a Premier League team no more.
No, EFL Roundup, mate. That's what we're on now.
Yeah.
I can get used to that one. But, mate, thank you very much for joining me tonight. Thank you, everyone in the comments. Please like, and if you ain't subscribed, hit that bell, get the notification when we put a thing. It really does help the channel. You know, like Dan keeps saying, we're going to start asking more for likes and things like that, because everyone else does it and we don't do it. So, you know, if you're new, subscribe. If you've been around for a long time, you like the video, like it, because it'll get shared even more then, and it really, really helps us out. But Ryan, thank you very much. Everyone in the comments, thank you all. There's only one thing left to say, mate. Come on, your Lions.